Hi, welcome to this episode of ComSpeak on Founder India TV. We have with us Anasuya Ray. Anasuya is the head of corporate affairs and communications at Mars Wrigley India. Who doesn't know Mars Wrigley, right? We've eaten Mars chocolates, Snickers chocolates all our lives. Welcome Anasuya and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Amith. Thank you.
We'll start by asking you about your early years, how your school days were, where you grew up and what you did as a school youngster back in the day.
So I grew up in Delhi, born, brought up in Delhi, and like a typical Delhi, girl growing up, had, all sorts of experiences and, enjoying the lifestyle, the simple lifestyle back then as we were growing up. The life was much more simple. Delhi was much more clean.
Which school did you go to?
I went to Lady Urban School. Delhi was much more clean. There were much more greenery all around, so loved it. And we used to stay in Lodi Road, where the meteorological observatory offices were there, and Dad was posted over there. So it was good fun growing up at that point of time in Delhi. And my schooling was in Delhi, got married in Delhi, so it's been a Delhi journey all along.
Nice. And then you did your graduation from Hansraj College,
I
you
did
said?
Yeah.
The famous college, we've seen it in many
Yeah.
movies and elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then what took you to the world of marketing, communications, branding? Tell us about that journey. How did you move from college to getting into branding, marketing, communications?
So I studied English, and for anyone who was studying English at that point of time, it was either journalism or advertising, PR, etc. So obviously I kind of got, first of all I thought maybe journalism, then I thought no, maybe it's not my cup of tea. Let's look at something else, which is advertising, PR, and all these things. And as I started to study more around advertising, about how PR or public relation is getting handled, it started to interest me more. And that's how I kind of, deviated into that side and got into corporate communication. I started with marketing communication, then got into corporate communication slowly. And I enjoyed both sides of it, managing the brand and then managing organizations as a brand.
So tell us about your early jobs, the companies you worked with in the initial years of your career.
So I worked with Times of India. I've worked with India Today. And I would say when I was in Times of India, that was the time when, E-Times, Saturday Times, etc. were launched. So there's a lot of things were happening. Delhi Times was launched. So there was a lot around price slashes which were happening in various editions of Times of India, Bangalore.
So you were the brand team?
I was with the brand team, but it was an exciting phase because we were working a lot, writing copies, and it was all done in-house. Yeah, writing copies, and it was those, we used to start in the morning, early morning, finish late, but it was a really invigorating experience. And coming straight out of college, it was like, oh my God, Times of India, and working on that. And then slowly, as I moved on to India Today, etc., again, that entire brand building part of it, thinking about how will the brand finally go to the consumers was really an interesting part of it. And as I moved on in my career, then I worked with Bain Company, which is a consulting firm. So of course, when Bain first came to India, it was how to establish a consulting firm in India where you already have such famous players like a McKinsey and BCG. So as you work along in the consulting firm, you don't have a product. You just have, mind power, you have the partners. Now you have to place them and place these individuals as thought leaders in various forums, etc. So there's an interesting phase of, communicating that, and of course the work that Bain did. Then Samsung happened, and post Samsung, I'm now here at Mars Wrigley, and the world famous brands, the billion-dollar brands which are here in India, and loving every experience of it.
Are you a big fan of chocolates and sweets, and do you enjoy eating them a lot?
Yes, yeah. So I think the first year at Mars was like, oh my God, you could open the fridge and just see a line of Snickers and all those things, and all gums and mints and whatnot. So it was fun working. It was fun working, and it still is, I would say.
Nice. So you worked in, unlike most corporate communication, corporate affairs people who start off straight in a PR firm or in a corporate affairs team, you began working in a media house or two media houses in the brand team and then transitioned to work in corporate communication. So how was that transition like?
I would say it was pretty seamless because, even in the brand team when we were working, and the thought was, okay, we are marketing a brand which is going to the outside world. At the same time, we were thinking like we were communicators at the end of the day. So advertising campaigns were getting developed. At the same time, how do we use that advertising campaign to develop a PR campaign around that? So the thought process was always like that. It was communication in one way or the other. Even when I look back, when I'm working now in Mars. So I don't look at communication just as, communicating, but I look at it as a reputation building piece. And even in Mars, so Mars in India, we came to India in 2011 and the chocolate brands, etc. But Wrigley was way before that. But Mars has, and we are a privately held company, so we are largely, very silent about us, about what we do. But what we have realized is to build that reputation of the company in a market like India is really interesting. So I look at building communication as building reputation. Yeah. So that's what interests me a lot.
So before we come back and talk more about your current job and what you do that's exciting there, we'll talk about your previous two jobs. We're in two diverse fields, consulting and then consumer electronics. Tell us about one thing that stood out for you, either a campaign or a moment of professional excellence at your job at Bain Company.
So Bain Company, as I told you before, is so I was coming to Bain and there was nothing, no product in front of me. All I had was lots of content, lots of knowledge around, about Bain Company, about what they do, the work that they do, and a few partners and an Indian organization which we had to kind of, market and to communicate. So I think the first challenge and the opportunity was how to establish that, yeah. And Bain was obviously placed against a McKinsey and a BCG in India. So obviously, how do we talk about what's our strengths? Where do we come from? What sort of thought leadership we can drive? I think that was really interesting for me to start with at Bain.
And then at Samsung, what did you do at Samsung that was different, unique, that stood out for you that you will never forget?
Oh, of course, the celebrity campaigners that we had in Samsung. We had Amir Khan launching a Galaxy, we had some other star launching something else, a consumer durable product, a washing machine and all those things. So that enormity of, doing a communication exercise was really powerful in Samsung. And the kind of support that the organization had against corporate communication in driving the brand was really an inspiring moment.
So was it very hard for you from moving from a consumer electronics company to working with a confectionery and chocolate company as well? Was it a big challenge? Was it difficult or was it easy?
It was totally different. I would say it was radically 360-degree different, because here you have, products which people can see, and here and which people buy, we're taking a conscious decision. But here I am in a category now which is largely impulse. So you don't go to a market thinking that, okay, today I have to buy a chocolate, or I have to buy a gum. You go there, you pick up. So, I have to be there at your eye level, If you're standing at a checkout, I have to be there. My ads, my campaign, my communication needs to be at such a high level that you're constantly recalling me. So therefore, the challenge was to what is this that kind of, resonates with the audience more.
Right. So what's that one campaign in those two jobs, you can choose one of those or both, that stood out for you and you say, wow, that's the campaign that I really put all my heart and might and worked on it to make it really stand out for you? Is there one campaign in either of the two jobs before you moved to Mars, in Samsung or in Bain Company?
So Bain, I would not say there was a campaign
Sure.
per se, but how do we establish Bain in India was really if I consider that as a campaign, yes. Working with the industry chambers, working in media, creating those bylined articles for various forums, and using our partners to drive forth Bain's capability. I think that was one. And for Samsung, especially when we launched Samsung Galaxy, so we had Amir Khan coming, and the way we launched it through a big press conference and reaching out to quite a few media, then starting, and at that point of time in Samsung, the blogger thing was slowly starting and picking up,
Right.
Social media was picking up. And then using the blogger forums and having the bloggers talking about the product, etc., was really interesting. Yeah.
Nice. So let's spend a couple of minutes talking about your campaigns here at Mars and Wrigley. What are the couple of campaigns in the last 5-7 years that you've worked on that stood out for you, that you say, wow, I'm so glad I was part of those campaigns? Tell us more about that our viewers can go back and check, learn more from them and get inspired by them as well.
So typically Mars, I would say sneakers, which is you're not you when you're hungry, which is absolutely a fabulous campaign. So it started way back in 2013 when we had Rekha, then we had subsequently Urmila Matondkar, etc., talking about sneakers and all. But slowly what we realized is that we have to kind of move away from the celebrity angle and move into the normal consumer angle to it, and making it more, that it's an everyday situation. When you're hungry, you really don't know what you're doing. And I think the way we developed that, first of all, the advertising campaign of it, and then the PR campaign of it, and how we tied up with the various influencers and on the digital platforms, talked about what happens, the situations, what happens when you're hungry and when you're absolutely not you. And lastly, Then we used MS Dhoni, who used to be our brand ambassador for sneakers, and creating that campaign around who is he when he's, hungry. So there was a little bit of, there was a snippet, I think you've read about it or seen it, when he suddenly declares that I am leaving cricket and becoming a painter. It happened last year. So he said, I'm leaving cricket and becoming a painter, and then we created a PR campaign out of it that Dhoni confesses, and immediately we started receiving queries from various media, is that true, have you done it, etc., have you heard it, from where have you heard it, and then we released the final campaign. So I think those sort of moments were really interesting.
Does he? So I'm going to ask you a tricky question now, which is something that most chocolate manufacturers get asked, and as a corporate person, how do you deal with this entire anti-sugar lobby? I mean, all your chocolates, like most brands that make chocolates, have chocolates with a lot of sugar, they're sweet chocolates, and I love Mars because it gives me a sugar rush. So I buy at least one Mars bar every month. I think I'm not the best customer you can have, because I watch my sugar intake. And I love it, and I feel, wow, I wish I was younger and I could have one every day. So how do you deal from a communication point of view with the entire group of people saying, hey, keep away from sugar, sugar is not good for you? So what do you do differently from that?
And I think as a communicator and as a company, Mars, we are totally committed on, that yes, we are not into the category which will tell people that eat more sugar. We are not really telling that. We are an impulse product. You go to the market if you feel like you're purchasing us, that's A. B is, as consciously and voluntarily, we do not advertise to kids. We are only in channels which are going to, parents, general interest, where and we are advertising to the gatekeeper so that there is an informed choice. All our packages, if you see, have a declaration of what is the calorie content, and we work very closely with the food regulator in India to, and we have taken certain pledges on sugar reduction as we go along and calorie reduction as we go along. So all those things are work in progress. So therefore, as a category, we understand, yes, people love us, but at the same time, there is a responsibility, certain responsibility around it, and we follow that to the core.
So over the years, you've had several bosses in different organizations you've been part of. You can choose to name them or not, but what are the couple of things that stood out for you that you learned from one of your previous or current bosses that inspires you to do well or excel each day?
I think yes, I've worked with many people and all, and many bosses and all, but the one who actually stood out for me is my ex-boss, who's a New Zealander, and he has moved back to his country. But what I really liked about him was, in spite of all the what you call chaos that's going around town, but the way he was like calm and he was happy, and it was like as if nothing has happened. Right. So I really kind of liked that, and the process orientation of it. Sometimes we communicators tend to be, okay, let's do this thing, that thing, let's do it together, but how to categorize into things that we need priority, short term, long term, mid term. I think those are the things, those process orientation I really learned from him.
Nice. What excites you to go to work every day? What's that one motivation or one factor that says, hey, I'm going to go back every morning to my workplace and make things happen? What's that?
But that's an interesting question. I work in a fun company. I work for Mars, so I think the products, the entire organization, our organization is we have a workplace which is like an open culture. We don't have cabins, etc. in our office. It's an open, transparent office. People can walk up to everyone, talk to everyone, and then there is a fridge full of chocolates that we can open and eat sometime. Then there are gums and mints which we can lay our hands on. So I think those are and it really invigorates me, and also the entire exercise around how to make this brand relevant for India really excites me a lot.
So there are communicators in India who do pure play communications jobs, which is internal, external, and linked to brand communications, and then there are those like you who also have a mandate that is corporate affairs, which is a bit of government relations, I'm sure. Tell us more about what you can share with us about that job, so that people viewing the show are inspired to get into jobs that have a government outreach mandate as well.
So basically, corporate affairs for people like us would entail that we have a big organization in India. We have got footprints, we've got factories over here in 4 states and all. So therefore, there's a lot of work which happens with the government, and especially, and we are ultimately a food company. So around food, how we build our brand with the key stakeholders, the food regulator, then there are in the state where we have our footprints, how we are connected to the various state governments, etc. Then we work a lot around, on sustainability at various states. How are we talking to the state government about that? So I think there's an entire plethora around government affairs that we do, that outreach exercises, and of course, that entire stakeholder mapping and relationship building that we do in these states where we operate, as well as centrally.
Interesting. We'll come back to some more work questions in a bit. I'll go back to a few non-work questions. What do you do to unwind? How does Anasuya spend leisure time? What do you do in your free time?
Reading books, etc. is there, but I have a 16-year-old daughter. So, and this moment of time, what I am learning from her is like every day I get to hear a new word or a new thing on Insta, new thing on Twitter and the hashtag world, etc. I'm trying to kind of, get my head around all those things, and it is a difficult world and it's a difficult lingo that they say, So I'm trying to get to that lingo, and often when I do that, she says, "Ma, you won't be able to do that, so leave it."
Are you yourself active on social media? Do you use Twitter, Instagram yourself?
Not really an Insta fan because I'm still getting my hand around it, but yeah, a little bit of Facebook or a little bit of Twitter, but WhatsApp is, I think, the savior.
Right. What about traveling? Do you travel a lot on work and otherwise personal as well, personal reasons, holidays as well?
Yeah, both work as well as holidays as well.
Right. So do you get a lot of time for yourself beyond work hours, because the kind of category you work in is intense? I mean, there are a lot of challenges, there are new things that happen, it's food after all. Do you get a lot of time for yourself to do things beyond work?
Yeah, of course. I do a lot of time to get and to do things which are like in my control beyond work, which I do pretty often.
So let's talk to the younger people watching this show. What do you think should a young person aspiring to get into corporate communications, corporate affairs, be well equipped with in order to excel in this field?
I think, of course, the power of communication is A, but also the power to understand what placing oneself in the consumer's shoe. Ultimately, one who's buying your product is important, and also there are two facets to it, I would say. One is, of course, an external outreach point of view, and of course internal, because internally also your large set of associates / employees are ultimately your brand ambassadors. How do you keep them motivated as a communicator? I think both of them, and plus innovation. What is happening, and the world is so fast in changing in everything, and it's a fastly changing world and all. So how does one keep a pace with that? I think that's important.
So what would a 23-year-old need to do if he or she has to be innovative as a communicator? What are the couple of simple things? Like when you tell them be innovative, they don't get it. So how do you tell them to do a couple of things that make them innovative communicators? What should they do differently to be more innovative in applying that to their work?
I think the way the world is moving, especially with all the things that's happening around, people are every day, even as communicators, we are hearing and sitting on various business meetings, etc. What we hear is that how the business needs to be productive, efficient, and also reduce costs. Therefore, when you're reducing costs, what sorts of campaign that you should do which has the maximum impact? So is digital the new way out, or what are those innovative ways? What are the platforms that one can use to cater to the maximum number of audiences? I think that should be.
I'm going to pick on the word productive. You said people should be more productive. The question I get asked by youngsters I meet all the time is, how do they be more productive than they already are? So what should they do to become more productive? I'm going a little deeper into that, just that it helps younger people. So in order to be innovative and apply innovation to work, one should be more productive. So what does one do to become more productive?
So I think read and just pick up stuff, what's happening, speak to people, listen to what, and these, if you're talking about 23-year-olds, they're already, they have a lot of, I would say, if I compare myself as a 23-year-old to a 20-year-old now, it's a sea
world of difference.
It's a different world altogether. Yeah. And I think they come with a lot of knowledge, and what I've seen when I work with all these 23-year-olds as well, I see a lot of that inquisitiveness, the desire to ask questions. I think question more. And what I'm hearing, and when we go to the campuses, we see, there are a lot of questions around, okay, what do you do as a brand? What are your social commitments? So these days I've seen youngsters asking questions, what are our social commitments? What are you doing around human rights? So, those things are coming, so, people asking those questions. Right. So I think those are the things.
No, thanks. Beyond the companies you worked with, if there's one campaign that stood out for you in your many years of observing campaigns, it could be a pure play public relations campaign, advertising campaign, or a brand campaign in general, what's that one campaign that inspires you? What's that one campaign that stands out for you and you say, wow, I wish I was on this campaign whenever it happened? What's that one campaign?
Yeah, of course, the Vodafone one. Yeah, I really liked it. You know, the way they use the small little dog, the pet, and how he moved around, and especially now working with a pet care company. So Mars has pet care also under his brand, and also, you know, kind of connects, you know, the way it created, there was nothing except that one small little pet moving here and there, and the network is everywhere. I really love that. Love that, yeah.
So I'm going to now get on to the rapid fire.
Okay, I am getting myself ready.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's more to inspire people. The whole idea of this interview is that people watching it get inspired to have a more flourished career in corporate communications and public relations. So here we are with our 8 to 9 questions. The first one, what's the brand you trust the most?
Tata.
Really? What's your favorite book?
William Dalrymple. I'm now reading The Narcissist. White Mughals was one of my favorite books.
Very nice. The best company you've worked for before you joined Wrigley and Mars?
I would say Samsung.
Who is your professional role model? Somebody you look up to in the world of work?
In the world of work that I really look up to, I really like a lot of work that Nandan Nilekani did around this the UID thing, etc. I really like his work ethos, etc. So that.
An Indian communicator that you admire?
Ratan Tata, because I'll tell you, there's a background to it, because we have a particular product which is in partnership with Tata Trusts, and Mr. Tata is now, you know, age is actually catching up on him, etc. But at the same time, when he addressed a press conference through a video, and I can see the presence on a video messaging and the inspiration that he created in the group was fabulous. I think he's still great.
What's the product, if I may ask, that you have?
It's called Gomo. It was in partnership with Tata Trust, and it's from another segment of ours, which is Mars Edge.
Interesting. Your favorite holiday destination?
Paris.
Thanks. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Confident, honest, agile.
Thank you so much. I think it was a great conversation we had, Anasuya, and we look forward to being in touch in the future and getting those chocolates from you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Amith, for calling me. Loved it.
Thank
Loved
you
the
so
show.
much.
Thank you.